good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us to the Planning Commission Tuesday, August the 6th at 6:33. Oh, sorry, October. Oh, I don't know. I don't have the right one up here. Sorry, October the 1st at 6:32 p.m. Um, Roll call, please. There you go. Thanks.
Chairperson Oziata,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Giovanna Laborin,
Present.
Commissioner Perez, Commissioner Prieto,
Present.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Present.
Perfect. We'll proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Prieto, would you lead us, please?
Report on posting. I, Kimberly Hernandez, Housing Specialist, certify that a true and correct copy of the foregoing meeting agenda was properly posted on September 26, 2024, 72 hours prior to the scheduled meeting as required by law. Meeting compensation disclosure. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54952.3, disclosure of compensation for meeting attendance by the Planning Commission is $125 per meeting. Okay. Open session items. Item number 1, design review DR 2203 and variance VAR 2323. Consideration for request of approval for design review to allow the new construction of a 7,150 square foot prefabricated storage building, a 1,248 square foot prefabricated office building, including exterior site, parking lot, and landscaping, if improvements within an existing sodium silicate manufacturing plant, and a request for a variance to deviate from the minimum requirements of the zoning code pertaining to offset street parking, landscaping, and a site perimeter wall.
Thank you. Should staff?
Commissioner, our senior planner, Rodrigo Pelaya, will be presenting the item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. So this item before you is, as mentioned, it's a request for approval of design review and a variance. We have a clicker by chance? No? Okay, you can proceed. So it's a request for approval, design review, and a variance. The proposed project involves a new construction of a 7,150 square foot prefabricated storage building, a 1,248 square foot modular prefabricated office building, including exterior site improvements, which involve creation of a new parking lot and new landscaping improvements within an existing sodium silicate manufacturing plant. And the variance involves a deviation from the minimum requirements of the zoning code, which pertain to the off-street parking requirements, landscaping, and site perimeter wall. This slide before you shows an aerial image of the vicinity within the subject site. The subject site is shown with the red outline. As you can see, the site has an irregular shape from your typical lots per se. And this property here is bounded by Independence Avenue to the south, Quartz Avenue to the east, and there's a Southern Pacific Railroad that runs adjacent to the west of the subject site. And then there's other lots that are adjacent to the north. Surrounding uses include Fleet Yard directly to the west, with asphalt paving materials manufacturer directly to the north, and an office building, small office building to the east. and other industrial uses to the east across the street and south across the railroad along Independence Avenue. Here we have another aerial image, an oblique perspective to show more of the context of the actual site. As you can see, it's developed with several large metal structures and storage tanks and silos that are very tall. And there's also railroad lines that run not only adjacent to the site, but also within the site across the middle, running in a north-south direction, and another railroad spur that runs within the site just along or parallel to Quartz Avenue. That railroad also extends across the site and into the adjoining parcel just north of the subject site. Here we have a parcel map of the subject site. As you can see, it measures approximately 5.96 acres. And as noted previously, it's irregular in shape, very large in size. In this slide before you, we have a zoning map, which shows that the current zoning designation for the subject site is M3, which is heavy manufacturing, and is surrounded by other M3 uses all across the different sites of the subject site, with the exception of properties across the railroad to the south, which is industrial flex. These images before you show the current site conditions. To the top left, there's an image. It's a view looking north from Independence Avenue, and it shows the railroad that runs directly adjacent to the west of the subject site. That blue structure in the foreground is the structure that's furthest to the south of the site, fronting Independence Avenue and Quartz Avenue. The image in the middle, top middle, is also another view from Independence Avenue looking east. And then the image to the far top right is a view from the intersection of Independence Avenue and Quartz Avenue looking northwest. Other images below show views looking northwest and north from Quartz Avenue into the subject site. So as you can see, the railroad line shows it's currently active, and there's containers that go in and load and into the subject site and across into the adjoining parcel to the north of it. Here are some additional images of the current site conditions. These views are specifically looking into the subject site. The top left and middle images show the potential location of the proposed structures, which are within the northerly edge of the subject site. It's currently an undeveloped area, just concrete paving. There is an easement that leads from the entrance of the subject site into and across the site to allow for access to the adjoining parcel, which is currently landlocked, as it does not have access to a street. Other images show the site looking different views from Quartz Avenue, specifically looking southwest and west into the parts of the site that front Quartz Avenue. So as far as the proposed scope of work, the project requires design review, given that the site is larger than 15,000 square feet. And the project is also requesting approval for a variance, given that it's requesting to deviate from specific development standards from the zoning code. As far as the proposed improvements, as mentioned earlier, this project proposes the new construction of a prefabricated storage building that measures approximately 7,150 square feet. In addition, a modular office building, which measures approximately 1,248 square feet, a new parking lot with asphalt concrete paving and some other designated parking areas that are scattered throughout other portions of the site. New landscaping improvements within the proposed parking lot and the front setback areas fronting Quartz Avenue, and the new construction of a trash enclosure for waste storage on site. Here we have a site plan of the proposed project. The color coding in the blue rectangle represents the proposed storage building. As you're looking at the site plan, the far left would be the northerly portion of the site. Um, so the proposed office building is color coded in purple. It's proposed to be attached to the storage facility, and the proposed parking lot would be at the far northwest corner of the site, represented at the bottom left portion of this slide. The green areas represent the proposed landscape areas. Some of the landscaping would be proposed within the parking lot per se. And then the larger portion of the landscaping would be along the areas that front Quartz Avenue, and then a portion of Independence Avenue, just wrapping around that last point of this southerly portion of the site. So as you can see on the site plan, it's also worth noting that it's developed with numerous structures and storage tanks and silos of like very tall structures throughout the site. You can see that there's railroad lines running right through the center of the site, all the way from the southerly portion extending through and to the northerly portion of the site. Another railroad line that is extending from Quartz Avenue, entering the site, parallel to that front setback area and through the site into the adjoining parcel to the north. Here we have another enlarged site plan just to show in greater detail of the footprint of the proposed structures and the parking lot. It's also worth noting that some of the parking spaces are also proposed away from the primary parking lot. In this site plan, you can see that there are 4 parking spaces designated at the bottom left of the slide, which is the westerly edge of the site, just parallel to the railroad tracks. And then the slide before you shows the proposed design of a trash enclosure. It's a pretty standard design consisting of a concrete masonry unit walls with steel doors, solid steel doors. The proposed dimensions of this enclosure are approximately 28 feet in length by 9 feet in width. And it would house 4 storage containers. 2 of the containers would be designated for regular waste, and the other 2 containers would be designated for recyclables. The size of these containers each would measure or have the capacity for 2 cubic yards. These designs and capacities were made or proposed in accordance with the recommendations of the city's waste haulers' current operations. This is a slide that represents the proposed floor plan of the storage facility. As you can see, the floor plan in itself, it represents an open concept where there's no post or any walls within the interior of the space, and this is for the strict purposes of maximizing the storage of the building. So the building would have numerous window openings along the north side, which are shown on the top. On the top portion of this floor plan. There's also other roll-up doors on the southerly facade of the building. There's 2 of them, and other regular standard door openings on the westerly side and the southerly side for pedestrian access. The far right of this floor plan, you can see how a portion of that office building is attached to this proposed structure. This floor plan represents the configuration of the modular office building that would be attached to the storage facility. The purple color coding represents the proposed restrooms. There's 2 restrooms proposed within the space. The building would house 3 office spaces. One of those office spaces would be a shared area for multiple employees to work within. There's also a proposed conference room and then a supply room for clerical supplies or other materials for administrative purposes, an IT and internet technology room, and a break room. These elevations represent the proposed design of both structures. The storage facility would measure approximately 22 feet in height, and the office building would measure approximately 14 feet in height. We can go to the next slide, please. That represents the proposed color scheme and design of the buildings. So things to note on these designs, the storage facility is proposed to be clad in corrugated metal materials, including the siding and the roofing. That's your standard materials, as you commonly see on industrial buildings, where it's the metal with grooves per se, for lack of better terms. And the office building would have engineered wood siding with vertical seams or orientation of the siding. Now, the proposed color scheme it shows one primary color for each of those structures, all along all sides of the structures, and their earth tone and pretty much a color scheme with the earth tones per se, and light or shades of blue gray tones. Here we have a slide that represents some recommendations from staff as conditions of approval to enhance the overall design of these buildings, and specifically the color schemes that's being proposed. These examples show that there are multiple approaches to enhancing that proposed design. Things to incorporate. Some of those items that you see here are already incorporated into their current design. For example, they're already proposing a primary and secondary color, and then there's some accent per se on those openings. However, they can this design can be further enhanced through incorporating some sort of a base along all sides of these buildings to further tie it down to the overall colors and designs of existing structures within the actual site, as you'll see or you've seen in those previous photos. Some of those structures have a brick siding as a base, and then the blue colored corrugated metal walls on top. So these examples are part of the recommendation from staff as conditions of approval to for the applicant to explore a color scheme that's more in keeping with the current building designs. These photos before you represent the proposed creeping vines as part of the landscaping improvements from the project. So these vines are proposed to grow into the existing chain link fence that currently fronts Quartz Avenue. This fencing and a series of gate openings extend from the portion of the site which serves as a main entry point, right at the intersection of Ardeen Street and Quartz Avenue. And the fencing will extend all the way south and around the southerly point of the property, wrapping around the property and into a portion of the area that extends into the railroad line that runs adjacent to the west. As far as the proposed construction of the storage building, staff has observed that it has mentioned it consists of an open floor plan. The exterior building materials consist of corrugated metal siding and roofing, which match some of those existing structures. However, staff has some recommended conditions of approval to further enhance those designs of those buildings. Um, And then the a modular office building has the engineered siding as part of the exterior materials with a built-up roof design, which means it's composed of a built-up material. It's a thermoplastic membrane. Next slide, please. Okay. For the exterior site improvements, the designated parking areas will accommodate on-site parking for all employees and visitors. Currently, there's no designated parking areas on site, and this project would propose 33 parking spaces directly adjacent to the new buildings. 3 of the proposed parking spaces would be along or adjacent to an existing washroom building, as you noted on the floor plan. And an additional 2 parking spaces are proposed adjacent to building number 5, which was a building fronting Quartz Avenue toward the southern portion of the site. Lastly, 4 parking spaces are proposed at the westerly edge of the site near those storage tanks. New drought-tolerant landscaping is also proposed to enhance the parking lot, and specifically the curb appeal along Quartz Avenue and the portion of Independence Avenue. And a new trash enclosure is also being proposed. Trash enclosure will measure approximately 252 square feet. It's also worth noting that the site currently doesn't have a trash enclosure, so this would also help maintain the cleanliness of the site. As far as business operations, there's no proposed changes. The list before you describes their current operations, which will remain even with the construction of the proposed structures. So this is an existing manufacturing plant that utilizes 2 primary raw materials, which are sand and soda ash, to develop a sodium silicate. Sodium silicate is used for a lot of personal care items, such as lotions and makeup products, just to give you an example of the purpose of our materials that are being produced here. As far as the operations, these materials that I've mentioned are delivered by truck or rail and unloaded into these large silos. They're then manufactured and then shipped out similarly by rail or truck containers. The current operations normally have 9 employees on site per every shift. There's on-site transitions to and from various buildings that are conducted either by foot or smaller maintenance carts or forklifts, given that the site is very large to traverse. The plant currently operates Monday through Friday from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. for approximately 6 months of the year. And then the other half of the year, the plant runs on a 24-hour basis, 7 days per week. However, only 4 to 5 employees are working on an individual shift at a time. So on average, 1 visitor visits the plant daily. As far as off-street parking requirements, based on the Southgate Municipal Code Section 11.33.040, a total of 135 off-street parking spaces are required. However, this project's only proposing 42 off-street parking spaces, and as a result, will be deficient 93 parking spaces. As part of the review, the planning department did request comments from other departments and agencies, and Public Works Department determined that a traffic memo was not required or any type of traffic studies were required for the nature of this project. As a result, the applicant requesting a variance or approval of a variance to reduce the requirement for off-street parking. In addition, the project is also requesting to reduce the requirement for waste storage space. The code requires a minimum of 884 square feet of waste storage. With the proposed enclosure, the project would be deficient 632 square feet of waste storage space. However, given the history of the usage and operations of the site, based on recommendations from the city's waste hauler. Um, the applicant is requesting to provide a much smaller waste area to accommodate the amount of waste that's being generated. Lastly, the applicants proposing or requesting to reduce the requirements for screening elements along the entire perimeter of the site as required by the zoning code. So the applicant is proposing to screen specifically the frontage along Quartz Avenue and a portion of Independence Avenue, which are the areas that are visible from the public view. And here we have some summarized or a summary of the recommended conditions of approval, which are within the staff report. So the summary includes as follows. The exposed structural connections between the proposed structures shall be concealed with the engineered wood siding to match the material, design, and finish of the proposed office structure. The proposed color schemes shall be refined by incorporating accent colors on the storage building to enhance the stark appearance of the long spans of solid wall areas and the overall appearance of the structures. The applicant shall submit the physical paint samples of the proposed building colors for staff review and approval. Next condition is that the existing structure located at the southeast portion of the site has deferred maintenance, therefore shall be repainted with colors that are compatible with those of the proposed structures. Another condition is that the landscape planters shall have 6-inch curbing and permanent irrigation provided within the parking areas or landscaped areas. Next slide, please. Next condition is maintain on-site at minimum 1 4 cubic yard container for regular waste and 1 4 cubic yard container for recyclables. Furthermore, the waste and recyclables shall be collected at least 2 times per week to ensure that the site is maintained clean and free of visible trash or debris. Next condition, a landscape plan design stamped by a landscape, I'm sorry, let me start over. A landscape plan design stamped by a licensed landscape architect shall be provided for the entire property, showing the planter design, schedule of plant material, planter location, and method of automatic permanent irrigation. The plan shall be submitted to the planning division for approval, and such landscaping shall be installed and planted according to such approved plan prior to being issued the certificate of occupancy and shall thereafter be continuously and permanently maintained. A planter strip measuring not less than 1 foot in width shall be installed along the primary frontage, Quartz Avenue, of the property to support the future growth of the proposed creeping vines. This project, given that they're requesting a variance, variance may be approved only if all of the required findings are made. Findings are stipulated on the slide before you. Staff has determined that with the recommended conditions of approval, this project will comply with the Southgate Municipal Code requirements, and all of the required findings in support of the variance can be made. Therefore, its staff recommends that the Planning Commission determine that this project be categorically exempt under Class 3 new construction or conversion of small structures of the California Environmental Quality Act, and that the project involves new construction of 2 commercial buildings not exceeding 10,000 square feet in floor area on a site that's zoned for such use. And lastly, to adopt resolution number 2024-04 to approve the design review and the variance subject to the proposed conditions of approval or any conditions that the Planning Commission may wish to impose. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant's also here tonight, and they're also available for questions.
Thank you very much. Would this be appropriate time for the applicant to say a few words before we open it to public comment?
If I may, they also have a brief presentation.
Sure, that's fine. We can have the presentation now, and then we'll open up to public comment after. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Susie Forbath on behalf of the PQ Corporation, the applicant. In general, I can tell you that of the 50 odd, maybe Mr. Playo knows how many conditions of approval there are, we are in agreement. We're fine with them. We do have, however, a few concerns over some of them. And I would like to discuss those with you tonight. Mr. Palaio, can you put our, yeah. The first one has to do with the colors proposed. I know that Mr. Palaio just showed colors up there, but those are not the colors that okay, if you look on the little color chart down there, those are the proposed colors of the buildings, main colors and accent colors to be used. They were intentionally selected to tie in with other colors that are already throughout the property. You can kind of see how those colors tie in with what you're seeing. That's the view from the main entrance on Quartz Avenue. You can go to the next slide. Here's looking northwest. You can see again the colors tie in with what's existing. There's the blues, there's the tans, there's even the rust color that matches the rail cars. You can go to the next one. And again, you can see the colors, we thought, quite seamlessly tie in with the colors that are already existing there. The rendering that you saw earlier from Mr. Palaio, I'm not sure where those colors, it looked like they were all tan and brown, and that's not what we have. They're much more blue prominent, somewhat similar to the colors here that you see on these buildings. However, the blue is much more muted, as you can see in the little paint samples there. You can go to the next one. But from every side of the property, you can see that the colors kind of seamlessly tie in with what's already there. And then go to the next one, please. This is showing across the street, directly across Ardeen. This is the property directly across, and you can see there's no break in color whatsoever on that building. So I think what we're proposing is much more beautiful to look at and much more of an interesting design look than what's across. You can go to the next one too. This is across the street on Quartz Avenue, directly across from the entrance of the PQ property. And again, no color, no break, no fence covering, no nothing. So we feel pretty confident that what we're proposing is a beautification of the property and is much more enhanced than the property surrounding it. So we would like to request that the board consider our colors and what our proposal is with all the accent colors. We have 6 colors going. I can't imagine putting more than that. And another consideration is that the location of the new storage facility and office is in the back portion from where you enter the property, and it's really like almost hidden behind all the other buildings. So you don't see a direct line of this building next to that building going with the other ones. So we would appreciate very much not having the added cost of repainting brand new prefab structures. They came already painted. When these prefab units arrive already with the colors on them, and we would be having to paint over brand new buildings to adjust the colors that were intentionally selected. That's our first concern. Our next one is having to do with the landscape. We're in agreement on how much landscaping we're putting in, and we had already submitted a plan with showing all the types of plants that are going in, where they'll be placed, how they'll be placed, everything. And then now we only just when we got this staff report saw that they want a design stamped by a licensed landscape architect to do it. That's again another considerable cost to the applicant for a design plan that's already been established and we thought approved by planning. We submitted our plans with all a whole site plan with all the plants shown by name. And to have a landscape architect give us stamped plans is another, we think, a necessary cost. And it also included, which we thought was already previously resolved, they've indicated now that we have to have automatic permanent irrigation. And the reason we're objecting to this is one of the requirements from the city to the applicant was that we use only California drought-tolerant plants. And so that's what we're doing. The purpose of using California drought-tolerant plants is to not have to use a lot of irrigation. These plants are designed and intended that you do have to irrigate them initially while they're during their growth period to get them started. But once they are in and growing, they will just rely on the environment for the amount of water that they need. And that is the intention of the state. There's the California Department of Water Resources is who sets the regulations on those. And it's their regulation that the city is requiring on for this irrigation. So I reached out to the California Department of Water Resources, told them all about our project, and I sent this email to Mr. Palayo. I forwarded it to him, and it indicates that the Department of Water Resources said, no, if you are using California drought-tolerant plants, she says, it will only need temporary irrigation during the determined time it will take for the plant to become established. California natives to the area where the project is are excellent for this type of landscaping plan. And then she says, the section that they're relying on to put in permanent irrigation, she cites it and says, this section applies to landscape areas requiring permanent irrigation, not areas that require temporary irrigation solely for the plant establishment period. And that is what we would have here, is just having to manually water them for the plant start period and then not have to have permanent irrigation. So I think that the state was pretty clear that that's not what's required here. The other thing that we have is really having to do with more of a clarification. There were two conditions, both number 29 and 39, I believe from Public Works. 29 indicates that the applicant shall pay road mitigation fees in accordance with the latest fee schedule, $3 per square foot. We're fine with that. We understand road mitigation fees and are totally accepting of that. However, then 39 says that the applicant shall grind and overlay a minimum of 2 inches of existing asphalt with conventional asphalt from the edge of the property line to the center of the street along the property frontage on Independence, Quartz, and Ardeen, and restore the signing and striping as needed. That's physically mitigating the road. So it seems like we're being asked to pay a road mitigation fee to the city, but then also do the work ourselves and pay for that. And so we'd like clarification that if we do the work, we don't have to pay the fee, or if we pay the fee, we don't have to do the work. It should be one or the other, not both. And so I reached out to Public Works today. I asked for clarification of that. And pursuant to the municipal code, I had asked questions that are required in the municipal code, which is if Public Works could tell us the purpose and proposed use of the mitigation fee, the relationship between the fee's use and the type of development, and the portion of the fee that is attributable to the Quartz Avenue development project. I did not hear back from Public Works on that information. So again, I would just like clarification and that it is going to be one or the other, not both, that we're not paying the fee and doing the work. So those are our only comments for consideration.
Thank you very much. So we can go ahead and open it up to open to public comment, and then we'll wrap it around to staff. Anyone open comment at the moment? There, anyone like to step up? I don't think there's anybody here in the chamber. So any emails?
We received a public comment from Mr. Mario Dominguez.
And just a quick question regarding to emails. We're reading them all completely, or we're summarizing?
I'm summarizing it.
Summarizing.
Yes. So Mr. Mario Dominguez Jr. praised the detailed item report, recommending the commissioners approve it based on its thoroughness and the strict conditions for the applicant. He commended the city attorney's work and requested clarification from Ms. Aguirre about the business's operations for the audience.
Thank you. No additional emails?
No.
Thank you very much. So opening up to staff, any questions? Or responses to the
Yes,
applicant?
we're here to respond to any questions that you may have in regards to what the applicant is requesting. I can have Mr. Palayo respond to that. But just as an initial answer to Mr. Dominguez's email, I did speak with him this Saturday to explain to him what type of use is being proposed on site. And we were able to have a conversation about that, and I believe that he was able to get the comments or response that he needed.
Thank you.
So with regard to the landscaping that's being proposed and consideration that they're requesting for not providing the irrigation specifically. So it's typically a standard practice in the industry for commercial developments to be to provide irrigation systems for commercial developments. One thing to note, although the state does have an agency and they do make recommendations for drought tolerant landscaping or measures to save water, they don't have jurisdiction or requirements over cities to waive those requirements for irrigation. They do recommend to obviously provide drought tolerant landscaping. However, the city is allowed or may, choose to impose those requirements. The reason why they're being required is it's a standard practice to ensure that not only the new landscaping is preserved, but to ensure that their future growth and maintenance, because oftentimes drought tolerant landscaping doesn't survive depending on the designs or the environment that they're in, regardless if they're native species or not. What was the other clarification that there were?
Color scheme.
Okay, so going back to the color scheme, can you please bring it back to the slide with the existing site conditions? So here's some recommendations, and this is all due staff being cognizant of the applicant's budget and trying to ensure that they provide a quality product or design without breaking the budget or per se. So we've recommended to explore alternatives with the actual colors and not necessarily replacing materials. So with that, we're part of the can you go to the other presentation, please? So with the other recommendations, we're looking at the existing site conditions. There's these blue buildings that are characterized by the brick veneer along their base. And so these proposed buildings have a single material, a single primary color. And you can see that on this elevation. So what we're recommending is that if the applicant can explore other opportunities, you just pass that. Okay, so we're recommending to explore opportunities to, let's say, paint the base of that large storage facility to mimic what's going on with the brick veneer on the other structures so that they kind of relate to each other, but in a more modern approach. And it's really just adding a different color to the base, not necessarily exchanging or adding new materials for the purposes of maintaining a budget and ensuring that it's a high quality design. Other comments include, as you can see, there's a large spans of single colors. So adding some sort of accent trims vertically to create some breaks along the long facade would enhance the appearance of these structures and just overall site. That's merely the purposes here to as part of the planning reviews. It's also worth noting that as we conduct these reviews at staff, it's our obligation to ensure that new developments bring in a higher design or higher quality design to set precedents for future developments and these set examples moving forward. So that's the intent as well.
If I could add one thing, just for clarity of the record, I believe that the 5 conditions which the applicant is asking be modified or eliminated are conditions 11, 15, 16, 29, and 39.
Staff, anything else to add at the
I
moment?
believe I covered that. No, that's all.
Okay.
The last one is, sorry, about the Public Works conditions of approval. We really have no authority in regards to the Public Works condition. So what we can do is clarify that, but if it is accurate that they would require both conditions, then we cannot eliminate it from the conditions of approval at this point.
Well, that's not, the Community Development Department can't eliminate it, but it is within your purview to add or delete or modify any of the conditions. It's all subject to appeal to the city council, but these are conditions that the Public Works Department is recommending, but you folks have the final say.
Thank you. I guess opening up to my colleagues for any questions or clarification from staff or the applicants.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I wanted some clarity on the trash enclosures, and it kind of stems from the municipal code that is very dependent on the square footage of the existing buildings. And so my question with a lot of the codes is, why isn't the parcel to the northeast considered as part of the property, since it, at least through Google View, you could see that the address itself is on that building as an office building? Does it change any of the requirements if it's included? Or is it just because of the parcel that the work is being done on?
Sure. So the parcel to the east of the subject site, as noted, it's a separate parcel, independent from this project. Therefore, the requirements only are applicable to the subject site, even though they have some shared access, and hence the access agreements or easements that run through those multiple parcels.
Yeah, because I know that even the parking spaces, I know that they're saying that they only have 9 employees, that that they don't require that many spots anyways. So I mean, are these employees kind of going through both properties, or are they already parking in the office side, or are they typically parking on the other side?
They're currently parking within the subject site, except that there's no designated parking spaces. So it's kind of like
It's gonna-
wherever there's free space without any exterior equipment in the way and whatnot. So that's currently how they're operating. So now with this proposed project, they would have some designated parking areas to be improved.
Got it. And they also said within the report their average waste production. But I'm curious whether this project means that they're expanding their operations, and whether this expansion of operations would incur additional waste, and whether you guys believe that it would be contained within the waste requirements you have. And I was kind of confused because in your summarizing slide, you say that you're requiring 4 cubic feet containers, and then I think within the report it says 2 cubic.
Oh, so to clarify that, the recommendation is to require a total of 4 containers. Each one would measure 2 cubic or have the capacity for 2 cubic yards.
Oh, okay. Got it. And for the irrigation, I totally agree with you, despite there being um, drought tolerant, California natives. I know that they're very fuzzy plants that are very dependent on the soil consistency. And so my question with that though is whether there is some sort of requirement for these plants to be made by a licensed landscape architect, or whether we could approve them as is.
Well, part of the recommendation for requiring plants prepared by a landscape architect would ensure that the design and selection of the planting species is appropriate for the site for the same reasons, to ensure that they survive. Doesn't guarantee it, however, knowing their expertise, they pretty much design to ensure that it promotes the growth and survival of these planting species. However, it's to your discretion if you want to require the irrigation system. Um, so
And the vines are requiring also an irrigation system, right?
correct. So the recommendation from staff is to create these 1 foot wide planting strips, which is where these creeping vines would grow from into the chain link fence.
And will they be cutting through the asphalt lining area?
Correct. So that would be on the asphalt paving right behind the fence.
And they're not replacing the fence, right? It's still going to be screened as is.
Correct.
And I know that you have other requirements within the items listed, and one of them is kind of keeping following like the local regulatory agency guidelines. Are you guys notified when they're not, or what?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part though. What guidelines?
I think like number 37 kind of goes, applicant must comply with all applicable South Coast Air Quality Management District regulations. Is that something that you guys keep track of, or how do you follow through making sure these are followed through?
So these conditions, specifically this one's a standard condition that usually is enforced through our building and safety department as part of the building permit issuance process. So at the time that the project is submitted for permit issuance, our building department will ensure that they are in compliance with this agency's requirements.
Got it. Yeah, because I kind of went on my own and looked, and I did see that there were kind of several notices to comply and notices of violation in the past, but the most recent didn't say it was in compliance, but it kind of said it was, I guess, fixed.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's something that you guys kind of make sure is either closed or.
It's usually these state agencies that regulate and keep track of the hazardous materials that are spilled or generated on sites. As you noted, there has been a history, close cases, but there's none active. But they do regularly monitor industrial sites at the state level.
Got it. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for all my questions. Thank you.
Any of my other colleagues, questions?
I have a question. I have regarding the conditions. I did have a question about the color scheme. It indicates that the proposed color scheme shall be refined by incorporating like certain accent to the buildings. Is that, I just want a clarification on that because the applicant did mention that it was proposed that the building be painted, like repainted again. So just want a kind of clarification on that.
So there's two parts or two conditions. One of them is to explore or further study the color scheme on the proposed structures. And then, as I explained, it's really to see other ways to enhance the design, specifically at the base, and creating some accents. The other condition, it's specific to the existing structure at the southerly portion of the site. Right now, there's a lot of graffiti on it, and so not only does it require regular maintenance, but more than anything, it's really that, just to whatever paint goes on there to get rid of the graffiti, to kind of take that opportunity to use a color scheme that's also compatible with the proposed structures.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, one, I want clarification on the pavement, because it has to be either one or the other. I find it very unfair that they're already investing to make that property look better and, have space for the employees. I always say the same thing, and I probably sound like a broken record. Seeing so many conditions, sometimes I feel we're not business friendly. They're already spending a lot of money, and these are already prefabricated buildings that are coming in, and to have them painted. What we want to do is help a business, not help them spend more money. We don't need to help them spend more money, but there's a lot of properties in that area that make no effort to even probably be up to code. I've gone to some of those properties in the past, and I still don't understand how they're still standing, but it's about helping these businesses, not helping them leave. So, the color thing, I think I don't agree with it. I don't think they should be told what, if they already have that similar color in that property, shouldn't have to match even the surrounding area. The landscaping, I don't know much about landscaping. I don't have plants because I can't even keep them alive, but adding another cost for an architect, I just think we should work together with the businesses in making it easier, not harder, especially when it's adding more cost. So that's all I have to say.
Just, I guess, a few comments. Well, first of all, thank you for all your hard work, staff, for putting this together, and thanks for the applicants for joining us here today. I think the key thing for everything is, we often have staff to advocate on behalf of our community to really kind of set the precedent on how we want to be, what kind of city we want to be moving forward. So not necessarily just continuing to do business as usual, which means that there are new potential opportunities to allow existing businesses or future businesses to kind of meet a certain level of criteria that will help beautify an area that maybe has been neglected over the years. So I think these opportunities kind of present themselves, where then you ask yourself in regards to, what is the precedent in regards to, public works, and, is there a fee? Is there asphalt, grinding, all that good stuff, overlay? I have seen other developments that do go up in the city are required to kind of take those measures. Now, I can't speak to whether there's a fee associated with it, but I do know that there's, certain beautification measures that are required by the city. Once again, it helps beautify that respective area or segment of the community. So I value that approach in regards to doing that. I also, understand that there's a cost associated with that to our applicants. And we like to think that folks that do business in our city also want to invest in our city and want our city to be, a vibrant city, and, be long-term businesses that continue to invest in our city in one way or another, whether that's, monetary compensation, or whether it's, embracing some of these beautification requirements that are required by our staff. and our city, just based off of measures that are in place. But those are just my initial comments. I really value the fact that you want to do something, you want to make it look nicer. But I think that's where the conversations with the applicant and the staff sounds like there's maybe some opportunities there to kind of continue to, negotiate or find a common ground in regards to what would be something that is favorable to all parties. Now, I can't speak to whether that's something that can happen, here in this setting, because we still have, some pending matters in regards to the asphalt and all that good stuff. So those are just my humble thoughts and, for consideration by my colleagues here. But, I open it up again to the staff and to our colleagues here if there's any additional comments on that. But I do feel like maybe there are some reservations from my colleagues in regards to some of the measures that have been proposed.
For number 29, it says that the applicant shall pay road mitigation fees in accordance with the latest fee schedule. Industrial development fee is calculated $3 per square foot of gross building area unless otherwise exempt from the road mitigation ordinance or waived by the city council. Do we know if they're exempt by the road mitigation ordinance? And does it have to be waived by city council? It can be waived by us as well, right?
It cannot be waived by you.
Oh,
That's, I believe that language is taken from the ordinance. And if the ordinance says it can be waived by the city council, it can only be waived by the city council. As far as whether it's exempt, I don't know. I could find out, but tonight I don't know.
So then we would only have jurisdiction over the other part, which is the number 30, what was it? 39?
One thing also is if it is exempt, then they don't need to provide that payment. And that's why it says that if it is exempt, then they can waive that.
Got it.
I wanted clarification. I don't know if I heard, I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't catch your name at the moment. Susie?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that they added the architect for the landscaping?
No, we didn't.
So there
This
was.
is the
they-
first we
till-
saw of it
till
was
now.
when the staff report.
So what's happening with the communication between our staff and the business owners? Why weren't they aware that that this was being added?
So this is a project that's been ongoing for several years. It's probably about, I would say, 2 years. So unfortunately, due to turnover in staff, specifically in planning, there's been changes in case manager specifically for this project. So it was not communicated over time.
Because that's what I'm hearing a lot. One of the council meetings, I heard one of the council members even bring it up, that the lack of communication between the businesses and our city. So we have other businesses that have came forward of the lack of communication. Right now, I feel there's more questions, not answered. For at least for me personally, I don't feel I can even vote because there's more questions that are coming about with no answers. And the communication is very important between our staff and the business owners or potential business owners. I don't like listening to Susie saying she just was shocked with your presentation that was included. That's an added cost. That's an added cost. And we have to work and be better in this communication and see how we can not just help businesses but also the residents, because it happens not just with businesses, but we have that lack of communication with our community, period. So I'm hoping that staff has better communication, for them not to come here and find themselves being shocked that there's another condition added, which is would add another cost to them.
Related to that, I think you said that the plans you submitted were already approved. Is that right, or?
That's inaccurate. So plans are, you are the review authority, so you are essentially the approving body for projects. So we as staff, we review projects before presenting them to you, and we prepare a recommendation.
Got it. And so at the time when the plans related to the landscaping were presented, you just didn't, they weren't notified that they needed to be stamped.
Correct. So, and it has to do with the turnover in staff. It was not communicated early enough in the process to make them aware, hey, as part of a, landscape design, these are standard requirements as for commercial developments.
Yeah, that's a shame because I mean, if I feel like if we do add a stipulation to require irrigation, I agree with you. I think there is a need for even drought tolerant plants to have some sort of irrigation. It doesn't even have to be anything complicated. I mean, something like drip irrigation, which could save money, can be easily implemented. But yeah, without knowing that they're that they're acceptable plans, it's really hard for me to make a decision as well.
Maybe just for clarity, when were the new so-called requirements presented to the applicant?
Well, we've been in communication over these past 3-4 weeks, and we've discussed everything. As far as the irrigation systems, it was not communicated until last week as we were preparing the agenda.
We were notified of it Thursday evening. As well as the irrigation system and the color scheme thing we found out Thursday evening.
Actually, the color scheme, we had been discussing this for several weeks, and it's something that, was not really agreed upon, and staff said this is the opportunity for the applicant to make that request before you.
But today's not the first time that they've heard that these.
Correct.
The color scheme, but we're talking about also the other,
Irrigation
It's
was
not
last.
the first time that staff has heard about the irrigation, because I have this email showing that I sent this to the city in May. I forwarded the email from the state saying that they don't recommend permanent irrigation for drought tolerant plants, and I sent that to them in May. So they've known about it for a long time. They've just never responded.
It's
Again, that's going to your communication point. We've asked and not.
I mean, it's been a discussion between staff, but again, from state, it's a recommendation, not a requirement.
but she sent that to staff and nobody responded. And she's here today, and there was a condition added about an architect for the landscaping. That's what I asked, and that's what she answered, that there was no communication about adding that condition of added cost. So to me personally, I couldn't move forward right now. I would like to ask to, would this be moved to a later date so we can have more actual answers than questions? 'Cause
What specifically are your questions?
Like,
So we
do
have
we-
one for Public Works,
For the
whether or
Public
not
Works?
it's exempt, and they'll have to pay. And then also within regards to irrigation. In regards to irrigation, the applicant now knows that there's a requirement. It's just a decision that we're now going to have to make on whether or not it's going to be required. Postponing it another couple of weeks, we're still going to be in the same place, whether or not you're going to approve the irrigation. Again, it's under your purview. If you don't agree that there should be irrigation, you can eliminate that condition from the conditions of approval. In regards to the Public Works requirements, again, if it's exempt, then there is no need for them to pay.
So we can proceed without knowing about their.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reference to an ordinance, and so, as Meredith said, if they're exempt from the ordinance, then they don't have to pay. If they're not exempt, then,
They can go to
and it's
council.
required in there, then the applicant could appeal to the city council to specifically remove that. But whether or not you have a reference to it as a condition, the ordinance is the ordinance. If they're required by law to comply with it, then they must comply with it.
Can I please clarify that, the fee situation? It's not that we're objecting to pay the fee. We're fine to pay the fee. We just don't want to have to pay the fee and do the mitigation. We should either be required to do the mitigation, we do the road work, or the city does the work, we pay the fee, and the city will mitigate. That's what a road mitigation fee is for the city to do that work. So, but we're, in this staff report, we're being asked to mitigate the roads ourselves and pay the fee
So
to the
that's-
city. So
That's one of the
That's our
things that's
question.
making that hard for me is it's not knowing if, well, they're, okay, if they don't.
You would
Will
need
be-
to speak to the mic, please, so that it's on
Sorry,
record.
sorry. So I don't agree, well, with the conditions, I don't agree with adding that color scheme or if it's already fabricated and it matches to what they currently have. I don't agree with that condition being in there where they have to paint it. And then the other one is adding an architect now on the conditions for the landscaping. But that's,
Again, those are conditions that if you don't
Yeah,
agree
those
with
are two
those
conditions I don't
conditions, you do
agree
have the
with. I don't-
discretion to delete them from the conditions of approval. And you also have the option of postponing the decision, and it's also up to the applicant if they'd like to wait a couple of more weeks in order for that to take place.
Well, it looks like is there any way to get, I don't know if you're caught up with the whole public works, is there any way to get clarity on that?
Yes, we
From-
would have to speak with them
Yeah,
and postpone this public hearing till the next one and bring back more information to you in regards to their requirements. I do know that they don't include conditions that are not approved in the municipal code. That I know. So they do refer to the municipal code in order to add these conditions to their sets of condition.
we just need that clarification. If they're gonna do the work, are they gonna still have to pay the fee? Basically, that's the question, because, I mean, they can't do the work and then still pay a fee. It has to be one or the other.
colleagues? Do you feel comfortable moving forward with a vote or putting a motion on the table as is with the existing conditions?
Just to let you know, sometimes when they do add conditions for road mitigations, it's construction of the road and then also maintenance of it, because they are aware that, let's say, for example, we've had projects before where we've required grind and overlay and also added road mitigation fees, because there are other types of mitigations that they do require outside of the actual construction or the grind and overlay, separate from the grind and overlay.
I personally would feel comfortable moving forward knowing that they can always appeal to council for the fee, the $3 per square foot fee. What I'm stuck in is the architect, landscape architect issue. I personally feel like the issues, being able to add the irrigation system kind of mitigates the dangers or the concerns with the plants being able to survive. I think it's unfortunate, right? Our city doesn't have a landscape architect that we can defer
We
to.
do not. Another recommendation I can provide is if you are not comfortable with adding a landscape architect nor an irrigation system, it's then up to staff to ensure that the landscaping is well maintained and that it survives within a certain period of time. Because what happens is we impose these conditions to ensure the growth and maintenance of these landscape, but then again, without proper irrigation or not without proper plant material, and we are not experts with landscaping, what we can do is after 6 months, 1 year, visit the site and see if the landscaping has matured and is growing the way it should be growing, and it's actually, up to par, up to the standards that we would require if we were to have a landscape architect, available to stamp these plans.
I like that, but I do, like I said before, I do see the importance of an irrigation system. And I mean, I know that it's an additional cost, but I feel like it's something that I just don't see any plants surviving without it. I mean, I could see plants, not have the need for continuous irrigation, but I don't know. I've had better luck with non-native plants personally, so.
Sorry for the thought process here, but I think what makes it maybe a little bit harder to digest is the fact that maybe you weren't someone informed ahead of time in regards to the importance of having a landscape architect, in place. I can see how that can be, concerning to you all, just given the cost associated with that. But when you're looking at the greater scheme of things in regards to the sustainability of plants and the beautification of your property, I think not only just for that centralized area, but even the vines that you're trying to grow along the fence, there's gonna have to be some kind of irrigation system potentially in place. If I'm hearing you correctly, that will be required in order for those to kind of bloom and actually kind of
I know
grab root.
This may
And-
sound old school.
And one can say that, oh, we'll have someone water it every 2 days, or someone will be dedicated to that. But we know that that does not become a priority when you have other operational kind of responsibilities on site. I've seen it time and time again in my line of work, where you try to have that in place, and then before you know it, it just doesn't become a priority anymore because you think there's other things that require the staff's attention and things of that nature. So you run your operations. I'm not gunning into that, but I do see the value in having an irrigation system. I do say on behalf of just our colleagues here, I think we apologize that that wasn't communicated ahead of time or accordingly. I hope that I think that frustration would have been potentially alleviated, but we have experienced some transition. Our staff has mentioned that, and maybe our communication could have maybe been a little bit more stellar. But unfortunately, this is where we're at, and this is where we find ourselves. And our colleagues will have to decide here if that is a sticking point in regards to us not moving this project forward in regards to the recommendations of our staff. But I do see the value in that. But once again, I'm only one vote, and my colleagues can go ahead and give their opinions, and we can put a motion to it and decide to move forward. And if it doesn't pass, then we go at it again, or we push it out to the council and let them kind of decide, because there is a process. If you don't agree with us and our decision here, then you can appeal it with the council. So we all have options to kind of potentially, but once again, I want to respect my colleagues here. There's four of us here, and if we can make a decision today, then we should move forward. If not, then I guess we'll have to wait a few more weeks. But I want to respect all of your comments in regards to how we should proceed.
I can move ahead with the proposal to move forward with this, with the stipulation that we will continue to, that they should have an irrigation system, but they don't necessarily need to have a landscape architect stamp these plans since they've already been submitted. And I also agree with my colleague that they don't need to go with the suggested color scheme. I think, it would be nice, but it's not something that is necessarily viewed by the public. I believe these buildings are kind of far behind, and the point of having the vines and, gate fencing coverage, kind of impedes the public from even seeing these. So I don't think it's a necessary added cost. And the other change was, actually, that's it. I don't feel comfortable waiving the street construction improvements just because I'm not really sure how the additional fees, if we waive those, are we guaranteed that the city is gonna do the improvements later on? I don't know how that's gonna work, but I feel confident that you can appeal to the council and have that waived if it is something that you're not exempt from. But yeah, that's my proposal, my recommendation.
Any other thoughts? Because we haven't made a motion, so if you want to make a motion, we can go forward. If you have a few thoughts before we make a motion, that way whatever motion we put forth, people will feel comfortable moving forward with that.
Yeah.
You did reference the pavement aspect of it. If it's a matter of clarity, then we can move forward with what's in place. And if our applicants get clarity from Public Works and it's not aligned with, their understanding, then at that point they can appeal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
But I think clarification will go a long way, straight from Public Works who put that in place.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I'll make that into my motion.
Okay, so speaking of clarity, are you suggesting that, or are you making a motion to the fellow commissioners that that condition number 11 be deleted entirely and that condition number 15 be modified to remove the requirement that it be stamped by a licensed architect?
Correct.
Is that, okay, is that, okay, I just want to make sure that I knew what your motion was.
So you're making that into
A motion, yeah.
a motion? And
So quick little thing before we proceed, are there any reservations regarding removing the color scheme?
That-
Because, I mean, before we put it into motion, right?
You can discuss it before
We can
voting on it,
discuss that
exactly.
Before we go down that path,
Wasn't that something you just,
because those are the sticking points. So, but what's your take on that? Are you okay with removing?
well, it just how she said, removing that color scheme.
Okay,
So
so then
I
we can,
second her.
you can put forth a motion and maybe we can get some direction on making sure we hit all of our points.
So you made that,
Yeah,
You're
I made
making
that
that-
motion. So I get a second.
I second.
I-
Hold on.
As I understand the motion,
Yeah,
and correct me if I'm wrong,
Clarity.
I think that you are moving that, basically that everything that staff is asking you to do, you follow the staff's recommendations with the exception that you're proposing a modification to two of the conditions to the, that are attached. You're proposing to delete condition number 11, and you're proposing to delete from condition 15 the requirement that the plans be stamped by a licensed landscape architect.
Correct.
Okay.
But irrigation is required.
Yeah, that's still in
No,
the,
that's still-
Yeah, it
that's
was my
still-
understanding that she wasn't asking for a modification of any of the other conditions that the applicant discussed, but if I left anything out,
no, that's right.
okay, so that's the motion, and if somebody wants
I
to,
second it.
okay, so now you can discuss it and then vote on it.
Guess, any comments on the motion before we proceed to roll call?
Commissioner Prieto,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Laborin,
Yes.
Chairperson Oziata,
Yes. Great.
motion passes.
Okay, any additional comments from the planning committee? Is that where we're at now?
We, just what, open, like, non-agenda?
Non-agenda items? Is that where we're at? Staff? Sorry,
Comments?
long day. Comments from the public?
No.
Okay, we'll close the public comment. Staff comments?
Yes, I just wanted to give an update on the latest decision by council in regards to the industrial land use. If you remember, the city council made a decision or directed staff to search for consultants who may be able to prepare the update to the general plan land use and also for the environmental assessment. So staff is currently talking with consultants in regards to that. And what we're trying to do is, solidify the scope of work in regards to the updating of our general plan land use element along with our municipal code and also the cost for the entire scope of work to update these documents along with the environmental assessment required for it. And so we'll be presenting that to the city council hopefully within about a month. Once we solidify the scope of work, and also have the time schedule along with the proposed costs. So I just wanted to give you that update. And then also, I just wanted to inform the planning commissioners that yes, we are short-staffed, but we have interviewed for associate planning or associate planner along with the planning manager, and we're hoping to make I guess, an offer or offers to both the candidates by this month. Thank you.
Thank you for the updates. Any comments from the planning commissioners?
Well, I'm sad to know Jose's gone. It seems we've lost so far 4 and just going into October and we've lost 4 employees. So I can't even imagine how behind the department must be. And I hope we do find enough staff soon enough. So the residents and the business owners are not having to wait so long to get permits or, get things done. I also want to share with everyone, as you know, or as you may have seen on social media, Southeast High School lost one of the football players during a game, the August game. He was 16 years old, Christopher Gonzalez. I hope I do have the right last name. I don't want to make that mistake. Garcia, sorry about that. My apologies. He was 16 years old. He was already buried last week. But my brother, one of the Legacy high school baseball coaches, contacted the other high schools and stuff to put something together with the other kids that play sports from the other 2 high schools. So we'll have Legacy High School baseball and softball, varsity and JV, as well as Southgate High School and Southeast High School Saturday starting. They're going to start playing at 8:00 in the morning in the big fields, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's closer to the site of Tweety. As part of the Junior Athletic Association, we are the proceeds, everything we sell at the snack bar, and then the carts that we have out that are from the JAA will be donating 100% of the sales. The JAA also is going to assist in paying for the Blues because we still have to pay for the Blues. But we're very grateful to Southgate Park, to the staff, for working with us and getting us these fields. So I'm hoping that the community can come out and show support because that child could have been yours. That child could have been mine. And it was during a football game. He was tackled, went down, got up, collapsed, and pronounced there was no brain function. And just imagine the pain and the family's going through. So Saturday, if our community can come out, and even if we already have a resident that went and looked for me to donate some money and stuff. So we're gonna, and we have also local businesses that are donating, and so hopefully everybody can come out and support.
Thank you. Any comments? Any additional comments? No, we're good. I want to make sure I take the time to thank the staff for your dedication and advocating on behalf of our city. I know it's tough to transition and have folks transition out of departments, but thank you, Meredith, for your leadership and for continuing to push some of this work forward, especially when you're shorthanded. So thank you for your dedication to our city. And once again, I know we've been in contact, but it's great to have you on the team. So thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and adjourn. It's 8:01. Thank you. Oh, I think we're good, right? Yeah, thank you.